everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside Out with Soumya. I am psyched to have today's conversation because it takes us into the mystical concept of dreams. I have tiny goosebumps coming up for me. In today's conversation, actually, we have a very great and special guest. And along with that, we dive into the concept of dreams, understanding why we dream in the first place. Along with that, understanding our dreams, if there is a way to do that. And of course, we'll also know if there is a DIY to dream analysis that we or you actually as a layperson can use at home. And in case if we have some time and if our guest bestows that honor upon us, we might also do a live dream analysis session towards the end. And you might ask that who's taking us into that dreamland today? It's going to be none other than Miss Aastha Jain, who's there in front of me today. And I'm very happy to have her. And before I let her say anything, I want to introduce her formally about who she is, what she does. Yeah. So Aastha, her pronouns are she and her, is the founder of the Grey Couch, which is a mental health platform providing well-being services to individuals and groups. She has 4+ years of experience as a practitioner and has published multiple papers in renowned journals as well during that course. Along with running her own practice, she's kind of a superwoman. She's also pursuing PhD from Christ University as of now. And she is a certified hypnotherapist, a QPR gatekeeper for suicide prevention, and a dream analysis practitioner. She is a lot more, I'm sure. If you go to her LinkedIn bio and check her out, there'll be a lot, many things. But I think this is a good enough introduction to introduce you. So hi, Aastha. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, Soumya. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. You have done it better than I do. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. And before we even start talking about anything, I want to let the speakers know how we know each other. Yeah. So it's an interesting part that Aastha and I actually happen to live in the same apartment for about a decade, is it? Yeah.
Yes.
But we never spoke during that time, never at all. This is the first time we're formally one-on-one talking to each other. So I'm glad that we were able to connect today. And hopefully, this is one of the many meaningful conversations that we have in the future. All
Looking.
right. So, Aastha, where would you like to start today? And if you have something to start about from yourself, I am all ears, but I'm throwing the ball in your court.
So thank you so much once again for having me. And like you said in the introduction, dreamland, as we say. So dreams are really mystical, and especially in the Indian culture, since the time we are in the childhood, there is so many, there are so many things and ideas which are attached to the concept of dreams. I remember when I used to be younger and, we had to go on some picnic or something. So my mom, I don't know, she used to get stressed or what. And she used to see in her dreams that, I have fallen into some place or I'm in some trouble. And then she used to say, no, please don't go for the picnic because, this is going to happen. So
Right.
this is
Yeah.
one major conception that we attach to the dreams, even in 21st century, that what I have seen in my dreams is going to come true, which is, I think,
Oh,
quite
yeah.
specific to our, Asian subcontinent.
Definitely, we do believe in that. I mean, बुरे सपने या मुझे अच्छा सपना आया फिर किस time पे सपना आया. We emphasize a lot onto that aspects. Now that we're saying it, it's coming to my mind. All that I've heard from my family, my culture, society, peers, all of that. Yeah.
There
So,
are actually some theorists from
mhm.
even the Western nations who have said, who work in the area of parapsychology, and they
Mhm.
actually say that there exists something called precognitive dreams, which happen in the typical time of 4 a.m. to 5 a.m., which are going to be true. But then, of course, we do
Uh,
not really have any scientific method of
right.
verifying that.
True. But before anything, what is parapsychology for anyone who's hearing and who might not know?
So parapsychology is a subfield within psychology which deals with, aspects which are beyond the capacity of science as such. So they deal with subjects like spirits and souls and future and stuff like that. So not exactly related to dreams, but like I said, precognitions.
Right.
So we deal with that area, but of course the scientific verifiability is quite low, so that field is not really popular as such.
Yeah. And one of the things that I always focus on doing in this podcast is to talk about the things that can't be proved, and yet we all have such unique experiences, right? We can't always fit things into boxes. कि ये prove हो गया या वो prove हो गया. So I would love to hear that part. And let's start from the very basic, Astha, about so dreams as a concept. It's super interesting. I mean, come on, we have our own mini movie theater every night, right? We close our eyes and it turns on. That's amazing. Sometimes I sit in awe thinking about how the human brain functions, our coding, and all of that, right? And a lot of times, even though there might not be a conclusive answer, but I'm sure there are a lot of theories revolving around why we dream. Like, okay, why we breathe, why we sit, why we sleep, all of that. Why do we dream?
Absolutely. And I love how you have put it, a mini theater in our minds. And I've never thought of it that way, actually. So yes, you're absolutely right. There are many theories which are trying to, put across their ideas as to why we dream. So if we listen to the most popular Freud, he says that dreams are a way of our unconscious mind sending across some very controversial or conflicting material into our consciousness. Right. And he said that because our consciousness would obviously want to block that information, it sends it across in the form of symbols. Mm-hmm. So if I am seeing somebody in my dream, that person is representing something else.
Ah, right. So something that consciously, like waking, I cannot or I don't want to process or accept. So that is a kind of a signal that our unconscious mind sends. But break it down for me. The conscious, unconscious, subconscious, these are like words that are thrown around quite a lot, right? So what do you mean while you're talking about Freud's perspective on it?
Okay, so Freud said that if we divide our consciousness, or if we divide our psyche into three parts, then we have consciousness, something that we are aware of. Mm-hmm. Then second, he said that is the subconscious part, something that we know of, but it is still at the back of the mind. So if I am paying attention to it, if I'm trying to think about it, it can be accessed by me. And then he said that the majority of the material is right there in the unconscious part, something that I'm not even aware of. So any controversial material, any kind of desires which my consciousness is not willing to accept, it will push it down into the unconscious and pretend like it never happened or it doesn't even exist. Mm-hmm. But obviously that thing, that issue, those desires, emotions, they want to come out because they are our needs, they are our unmet desires. And so the unconsciousness tries to wrap it up into a different colored package, that is the dream symbols, and then in the form of dreams it sends us to our consciousness. And so we feel very disturbed about all the weird dreams that we have.
Absolutely. That makes sense. And if I were to use an example, say conscious mind is right now we're talking. So we're conscious of the time and with the conversation we're having, all of these things. And subconscious mind might be the guidelines I sent you. You might not know on the tip of your fingers, but if you were to retrieve it thoda effort dalke, you will be able to, right? And the unconscious hypothetically might be some anxiety about recording this, that you don't want to, okay, I've experienced and all of that, but we all experience that anxiety, that fear ki kya hoga, kaise hoga, all of that. So that might be a part of the unconscious. So did you get any dreams last night about this?
I have more things to be stressed about. Like you mentioned, I'm doing my PhD, so that is very stressful. So this is like a stress buster for me right now.
That makes sense. I'm glad. Right. So Sigmund Freud, from the school of psychoanalysis, So you say that he said that dreams are like, when I was studying, I read what was it? The Royal Road to the Unconscious is the one line in NCRT that I always held on to, right?
Yes.
Talk to me more about his perspective.
Yes. So I think he was one of the first few people who actually understood that if we uncode or decode, our dreams, we can get to know what is really happening in my mind. So that is why he said it's like a royal road. If you want to know what is disturbing you, what is causing a mess in your body or in your mental health, then he said that one of the very important and useful ways could be to actually understand what your dreams meant. And a lot of my clients in therapy, they tell me that I saw this dream and I'm really shocked. How could I even imagine that? And then I have to explain them this entire process, that if you saw your sister, it does not mean that you want to do that with your sister. It becomes very disturbing for them. So our unconscious was probably using a safe face of a sister, but then it meant somebody else.
True. I'm glad you brought this point up, Aastha, because a lot of times people are not able to talk about their dreams because there might be quite disturbing themes coming up, right? Like, how can I even imagine it? I know that recently a client came and they're like, there's a pattern of dreams they described about related to their partner. And they said, how can I even do that? I'm so ashamed of saying it. It took so much strength. And this is a client whom I've been working with for 4-5 months. So they gathered the courage to talk about it.
It takes courage. You're so right.
It does. It definitely does. So it's important to know that dreams are not always something that need to be taken on face value, because I know I've had the trippiest of dreams. If it were true, I mean, oh my God, life would be something else, right? But it's a symbolic meaning. Yeah. So we'll focus definitely more on the perspectives of Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis. What are some other theorists saying about why we dream? I do know, I was reading somewhere, and you please correct me here, that from a biological perspective, it's also postulated that dreams are just random neural networks firing. I mean, that is an oversimplistic for me as I'm working with clients, and I can see that maybe not. But what do you have to say about it?
Right, you're absolutely right. So, when we try to follow the true biological paradigms, this is something I think we psychologists always have a conflict with, because
always
everything in terms of neurons and neurotransmitters and stuff like that.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right. One schools of thought actually says that dreams are nothing but just whatever happened throughout the day, our brain tries to process it. So, that is why, there are different stages of sleep. Absolutely. And stage 4 is the REM, rapid eye movement. So they say that, we see the visuals coming across our eyes, and they are just the neural networks who are playing in the night. And hence our eyes move because we are trying to see what is happening here and what is happening here. But again, it's a very simplistic way of looking at things, not diving deep into it. There are some other biological and even psychological paradigms to it. One school believes that dreams, we have dreams because our mind is trying to strengthen the fight and flight responses. So it's kind of practicing the dream.
Oh, that is interesting. It's the first time I'm hearing it. Do talk more.
So, the fight and flight response for the listeners, let's just explain it in 1 or 2 lines. So we all have the sympathetic nervous system in us, which gets activated whenever our mind perceives any kind of danger, real or imagined. And, it takes a decision if it should fight or if it should take a flight and run off. And, that is when a lot of our anxiety and anger and all of these signs and symptoms get activated in our body.
Yeah. And so just one thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you, just to make that concept even stronger for the listeners. I always say that from an evolutionary perspective, earlier it was more of physical dangers, actually maybe eloping a tiger or some attack that might be happening. Now in today's time, it's more emotional, the more maybe mental, cognitive, that type of stressor. So therefore, the flight might not be actual running, but in different forms, emotionally, how you do it. and the fight as well, maybe in terms of anger, outbreaks, that sort of a thing. Yeah, go ahead.
So I actually use the same example of the tiger. So very
Yeah,
relatable.
always. This is, I think, common in the mental health community.
Yes. So, you know what? The school basically believes that all of these need to be strengthened. Like you mentioned, evolution, and probably our mind has not yet accepted that we are in a much more sophisticated and a modern world where we do not have to strengthen these responses a lot for real physical survival. But they say that, you know, when you see yourself fighting with somebody or you see yourself in danger, that is your mind's way of actually practicing these things. So that is why you have all of these nightmares and all of these weird dreams where you see your best friend bashing you and stuff like that.
God, that is definitely interesting. Like your mind on a subtle level is actually working for you to strengthen your fight or flight response. Hmm, interesting. Okay. And what other schools of thoughts are present that why do we dream?
So nothing very major, but one of the schools which actually stood out to me was that they believe that our memory consolidation is happening. So our
Hmm.
mind or brain takes the decision, you know, it processes everything that happens throughout the day, and it takes a decision as to what is the useful stuff and what is the useless stuff. And whatever is recognized as the useful stuff, it then is organized and put into the long-term memory.
Hmm.
You know, you must have heard when you were younger that if you study and sleep afterwards, you are
Hmm.
able to retain that. So
Right.
probably it is because of that that we believe this.
Yeah, that makes sense. In fact, each of the schools of thoughts that you have mentioned, there is an element to each one that I'm relating to. But nothing like, okay, this is the only thing that I would go with, right? Because I understand there's so much that happens during the day that we consciously do not process. And of course, we cannot retain and take everything. So the mind does it. Like the body is eliminating the toxins physically, the brain, the mind is also doing that mentally for us. Yeah.
Right.
And yet, there are patterns in dreams, there are recurring dreams, there are nightmares. And sometimes we might have had, like, quote unquote, a good day, and yet we wake up in the middle of the night breaking a sweat that, oh my God, what did I just see? So, those are the things, the loopholes that make me more interested in understanding there's definitely more than just consolidation, just retention to the dreams.
Right. And when you see your clients actually discussing their disturbing dreams, you know, and when you try to decode them and you're able to relate it, you know,
Yeah.
something that we call dream analysis, when that
Hmm.
happens and when the client says, oh my God, that makes so much sense, and now I know why I had that dream. So you realize
True.
that, okay, you are on the right path, you're doing the, you know,
True.
the analysis or something that you're thinking about is probably the correct way of interpreting things.
That is true. A lot of times, my dreams definitely have helped me understand in therapy with my therapist, or maybe sometimes it just clicks that, oh, maybe it's about that. I will just give you an example. And this is, I'm giving with the permission of the client. I asked them long back if I could share this on a public platform without disclosing their identity, of course. There was this 35-year-old male who came to me, and the conversation was a completely different path. But suddenly, towards the last 10 minutes of our session, he says that I've been having a very disturbing dream, and it's been coming to me for every night of the week since the last 5 days. And I'm like, okay, talk to me about it. He said it's a very short dream. It generally comes up before I am waking up, in which I see this bull with long horns running after me, chasing me down the narrow path. I'm running, running, running. And the entire dream is just about that. That this bull is chasing him and he's running for his life. And I started just general exploration. Okay, what's going on in your life? What went through the week? X, Y, Z. And suddenly I thought, let me ask this client that what is this that you want to run away from? What has happened in the week that you is very scary for you? It's difficult for you, and you just want to put it aside and run away from. And Literally, Aastha, I'm not exaggerating. A tear fell through his eye. And he spoke about an instance, a conversation that he had with his sister, which really hurt him. You know,
Right.
yeah. And he's like, I want to take that out of my mind. I want to disagree with that thought that's coming because of the conversation. But it's not happening. It has really hurt me. So we spoke about that conversation with the sister. We processed it. Next week, he said, after we had the session, that dream never came to him. It was done.
So you analyzed the dream very successfully.
I did. It's wonderful, actually. That was the first time in my career, I'm talking like 4 years back, that this happened. And that is the time when I got this interest as well, that, okay, dreams are definitely not just something that I can put in a box of a biological or a psychoanalytical perspective. There's so much more to that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, talking about dream analysis, Astha, what is dream analysis in general? Like you said, Freud spoke about symbols, like specific symbol. If you see your sister, it means X. Like I'm talking about the first conceptualization. I'm not talking about the neo-Freudian sort of a thing, right? But he did talk about, okay, if you see a pencil, it means this. If you see yourself falling, it means this, right? So there are different ways of analyzing dreams as well. What are they?
Absolutely. So when we actually began with the Freudian concept, he came up with, universal symbols. So universal symbols mean that if I see a bull and if you see a bull, so we
Mhm.
are going to have the same interpretation for it. And, like Jung always talked about collective unconscious, and he also kind of believed in this. But then as and when, studies started happening, people started exploring this concept more, then we came to realize that universal concepts are not so much applicable. In some
Mhm.
cases, yes, they may do, but in most of the cases, if I am seeing a spider versus you seeing a spider could mean exactly opposite things. So let me give you an example for better understanding. For example, we're talking about snakes. Now, if I am, being an Indian, a very big, Shiv Bhakt,
Mhm.
snake might have a religious connotation to it. I
Right.
might tell you the other day, oh my God, I saw Lord Shiv in my dream and
Mm.
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
It's a positive sign for me. But if you do not like snakes as such, or if you're afraid of the idea of snakes, if you see a snake, you would tell your therapist the next day that, oh my God, I had a nightmare, I saw a snake.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow, that is true because I actually happened to hear some of my family members talking. Go, I saw an elephant, so that means I saw Lord Ganesha. Right.
Right.
For someone else, it might mean destruction, like elephant walking around and doing certain things. So it has a huge cultural connotation, and I'm guessing that is one of the parts that disputes Freud's understanding of universal concepts or themes of dreams.
Right, absolutely. So, whenever we indulge into dream analysis, this is the first thing that I tell everybody, be it my family members or my clients, is that do not take, like you said, the symbols also on their face value. Do
Mhm.
not Google what does seeing a snake
Oh,
mean.
please don't Google.
Right, because it is going to give you, one possible perspective, and then that is going to confuse you even more. So,
Mhm.
always just sit and identify the major symbols that you saw in the dream. So the
Mhm.
snake, probably your house or anywhere else that you saw yourself, the people who were present there. So the basic dream symbols that you saw, and just sit and question yourself, okay, how do I feel about this object? If I
Mhm.
see a snake tomorrow, am I going to fold my hands and bow my head? Or am I going to say, oh my God, just get the hell out of here, don't bite me?
Yeah.
That is going to tell you what your unconscious mind is trying to tell you. Is it warning you of some danger, or is it saying that, okay, things are going well, just pray to God and move ahead?
Yeah, got a random digression is in Big Bang Theory. I remember an episode where Sheldon pranks Raj by keeping a snake in his drawer, hoping that he'll get scared. But when he opens the drawer, he starts petting the snake and saying like, "Oh my God, he's from India." I mean, I don't want to generalize that concept. I'm shit scared of snakes. But in general, it brings into limelight the individuality or the diversity in terms of our experience with every symbol. Even within India, there is so much diversity. Your personal fears, your personal experience, your baggage, everything that might
True.
come into play. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Right.
even as simple as a dog, I think we can very easily divide the people these days into dog lovers and dog parents versus people like me who like to pet them, but okay, but just go away from me.
Yeah.
So if I see a dog, probably my real life instinct as well as my instinct in the dream would be just to hop on the bed or maybe run out of there. But
Mhm.
if a dog parent or a dog lover sees a dog, in reality also they are going to go near and pet him, and in the dream also they will do that.
Right. True.
So whenever we are dealing with clients or even for ourselves, if we want to understand the meaning of dreams on our own, never take it on the face value. Always question, how do I feel about this object or this person, and then go ahead with the analysis.
Yeah. What I'm hearing from you is more of a gestalt perspective of dream analysis, that there are symbols within the dream and all of them are unique to your own life.
Right.
Yeah. So it's in a collaboration. So which approach do you use, Asta, in your work? Because you also are a certified dream analyst.
Right. So I do not, even in my practice with, counseling or therapy or with dream analysis, I never try to restrict myself to any one school. So, like, you said that when we were talking about different schools as to why do we dream, every one of them makes sense to us.
Yeah.
So if you go with the mindset that no, I'm only going to believe in the Freudian concept, then you might never be able to see if things are better, at understanding them from a different perspective. So I
Yeah.
always believe in eclectic approach. I never believe in sticking to just one school of thought, and I think it has worked the best for me. So
Makes
sometimes,
sense.
like I said, yes, there may be universal symbols attached. Something as basic as Freud telling us that a house might mean vagina, a
Mm-hmm.
snake, meaning penis.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if I feel that, okay, I'm dealing with an older client, if I tell him that you saw a snake and that might mean penis, it would scare him or
Of
her off.
course.
So
Yeah.
I then try to take this religious point. Okay, how do you feel about a snake? Do you really worship Lord Shiva and stuff like that? So eclectic works for me the best.
Yeah. What are some other universal symbols? I mean, I got curious when you started talking about home being a vagina, snake being a penis. What are some other symbols, if you can refresh that memory for me as well?
So I have never really, indulged into universal symbols. So I can't remember anymore. These are the
Yeah.
just two which stood out to me. And, when you're young and you're reading about this stuff, this becomes
True.
very fascinating that, okay, I'm going to learn all of these. But as in when you start practicing these things, you realize that, I do not really relate to a lot of universal symbols. So
Mhm.
these are just two, which I remember randomly.
Yeah, that's true. That's the reason I don't remember at all, because I remember school mein ya fir undergrad mein when we were studying, oh, like, oh, this means that, that means that. As you get into the real world and you understand actually what's happening as compared to what I read in the books,
Yeah.
my personal experience has been far, far away from those universal symbols. For me, in the last 4 years of practice, I've never had a client with presenting, or even when I'm doing some sort of dream analysis work with them, come up with these universal meanings for them.
Right.
Have you?
Not really. And, because I think your and my population, the kind of population that we deal with would be very similar. We work with Indians, right?
Right.
And specifically my population, consists of mostly North Indians. So, not something very diverse. And what I believe in is that most of these theories, in fact, I think as many as I can remember, all have been developed from a Western perspective. And we come
So,
from a very Indian perspective. So sometimes not even wanting to, but then you have to bend them a little to fit to the kind of people that you're dealing with. So, like I
mm,
said, if I tell a 40-year-old woman that you saw a snake and it probably wants that you want sex or something like that, she's going to say, okay, this child has lost it. She would not even see me as a psychologist. She would say, this person has lost it. I'm not coming to her. Right.
yeah.
So I always try to understand things from our Indian lens. And hence, I always take the approach of, very individual symbols and
Mm.
what they mean for us.
I am really curious to hear about some example at this point of your experience with an Indian client, of course, a North Indian client, and how you used dream analysis, the Western concepts of it, to actually understand your client's dream.
Okay. So there's this very complicated thing, but I'll try to put it in as simple terms as I can. So I have a client who's been on therapy for more than 8-9 months now. And along with other issues, one of the issues is with his partner. His relationship is not really going in the right direction. And one day he said that, there's a dream that I want to discuss with you. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So he told me that I don't know how to make sense of it, but I saw Sri Lanka sinking, the entire country of Sri Lanka sinking. And I was
Okay.
like, okay. And he did not remembered anything else. And I was like, okay, this is a tough one to do, but let's take it ahead. So then I, began by asking, okay, when I say Sri Lanka in an objective term, how do you see it? So he
Mm-hmm.
said that the only thing that I remember about Sri Lanka is that, some time I remember reading that the diamonds from Sri Lanka are very famous.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay. And what in your life do you see as sinking? What do you feel is
Oh.
going out of your life? Something that you're losing and you have no control over it.
Mm-hmm.
So he related it to his relationship because recently his partner had told, that she wanted to end the relationship and get married to some other person, not more like I don't have the permission to say
Yeah.
more
Of
about it.
course.
So then, we discussed about it for half an hour, 35 minutes. And at the end, the conclusion that we reached to was that so his mind coded relationship with a ring because marriages are sealed with a ring.
Yeah.
So he saw marriage in the context of a ring, and from ring he reached to Sri Lanka, where he has never visited, by the way, and he saw Sri Lanka sinking.
Wow. That such a long chain of connection.
Yes. But then when
Instantly
he thought
sochne
about it,
pe,
he was actually able to say that, okay, yes, because whenever the self-talk goes on, he says that, okay, my relationship is sinking. I have invested
mhm.
so much in the relationship, and he doesn't see it as, going to the dustbin or something like that, but he sees it as sinking. That is his exact feeling for the relationship.
God, that must be really helpful for the client, Astha, just to know
Yes.
such ambiguous themes that come up, and when they click that, ah,
Yes.
okay, it comes with a sense of relief, like, okay, समझ में आ रहा है.
Yes. Yes. And
Yeah.
since then, even I have started associating Sri Lanka with diamonds now.
Oh my, this is occupational hazard of mental health.
Yes. But then, just imagine if somebody asks me about Sri Lanka, I would say that, okay, I want to visit there. There is some political hazard that happened over there. But that person could not think about anything but diamonds. So just
Exactly.
see this information he read many years ago in a newspaper or somewhere on Facebook that Sri Lanka is known for its diamonds. And the
Mhm.
brain used that information to do the coding so that the
Yeah,
unconscious, if we believe Freud,
absolutely.
not able to get the hint that okay, the relationship is being talked about. Sri Lanka is
Yeah.
hell with it.
Yeah, I was just thinking of taking a trip to Sri Lanka. मतलब diamonds तो दिमाग में भी नहीं आते कभी मेरे.
And my father deals in diamond jewelry. And then also, I never connected diamonds in Sri Lanka, but he
Right.
remembered that. And I'm glad that he consciously remembered having read that. Otherwise, I don't think we would have been able to reach the proper analysis.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the way you're explaining it seems like a simple process कि मैंने ये पूछा, वो पूछा, and it can sometimes what I've realized is when people hear these conversations, they tend to think कि अच्छा कल से मैं भी कर लूंगी ड्रीम एनालिसिस हम भी कर लेंगे क्या बड़ी बात है दो तीन क्वेश्चंस ही तो पूछने हैं
Right.
right. So at this point, I just want to give a disclaimer to everyone who is listening to this podcast that dream analysis are quite, it's an intricate process.
Yeah.
It isn't as simple as it sounds, and it's not always as great in terms of endings. Sometimes
Yes.
things can complicate if you come up with a really, really, really repressed theme of your life, right?
Right.
It can lead to a lot of distress for the person. So it's like that warning जैसे हम लोग Takeshi's Castle वगैरह देखते थे. Do not try this at home. Please
Absolutely.
do not try this at home. We will get to the part where we talk about how much can you do for yourself in terms of understanding your own dreams. Yeah. So actually, I also want to ask Astha, what sort of complications have you faced while going through the process of dream analysis with your clients?
Okay, so the most common problem is that, we forget about dreams
Hmm.
right after we wake up. No matter how fearful it was, no matter how vivid it was, it is only a misconception that I am going to remember it.
True.
Right. So when clients come to me, they are like, okay, I want to discuss a dream. And then we sit for the analysis. They will just tell me that Sri Lanka is sinking. Obviously, you cannot randomly see a country sinking. There has to be backstory to the dream, which
Mhm.
he clearly not remembered. So we feel that, okay, we remember everything about the dream. But if you remember just a very small part of it, actually it is kind of not even possible to do the dream analysis, because it's like
Mhm.
trying to understand such a striking and a vivid imagination just from a very small part of it. It doesn't make sense. So
Mhm.
this is the biggest challenge that, we feel that, okay, I will not write about it and I will talk about it, after 2 hours and I will remember. You will not remember anything after even
Yes.
half an hour.
That is true. That is true. There's
Yeah.
multiple times, like in the middle of the night, I have a dream, and I know it's an intense dream. And I'm like, "कौन लिखेगा बीच रात में?" I will remember because it's so intense for me. I will remember. Morning, I wake up. I'm like, "Shit! I wanted to talk about a dream, but I don't remember what it is."
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I read somewhere, I don't know if I am recollecting the facts right or not, but I remember something, reading something like that. You forget almost 50% of it within 5 to 10 minutes, and you forget 95% of it within the half an hour.
That actually raises a question when we're talking about this entire modality or technique of dream analysis. It's heavily relied upon the recall. How much can you recall in front of your therapist, right? And if I don't remember the entire dream, if I only remember the fragments of it, how reliable even the interpretation can be.
Right. So, see, anyways, even if you remember or if you have written 100% of your dream analysis is something which cannot be verified. Like I said, we can only make smart guesses around it. If the client feels that, okay, this analysis or this understanding of it is fitting with my idea, we kind of begin to accept that, okay, we are in the right direction. But
Mhm.
as therapists, as normal people, as clients, I would say never rely on the dream analysis 100%. Like, do not
Mm,
accept it as the proper and the full truth. Because we
right.
might very well be wrong in trying to interpret it. Our mind is much stronger than we are. If it has the
Absolutely.
capacity to do the coding at so many levels and make such vivid pictures that you literally start believing that it is happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not compulsory that in the waking life, with our logical minds, we can reach to the correct meaning. We are
Mm-hmm.
just trying to make smart guesses around it. So this is another
Right.
disclaimer, that do not go to any random person, because any therapist, any psychologist, because we have been trained those ways, all of us, we always tell the clients that, I am just trying to understand it. We never
Yeah.
claim that this is the utmost truth for you.
Aastha, this is what's coming to my mind is, isn't that what we all are doing in life? We're
Right.
just making smart guesses. We're inventing things and all of that, but we never actually know what I'm going into an existential line right now. But that's what came to me. And maybe dream analysis is like a mini version of that life itself. It does
Right.
definitely feel like a mini life in your head while you're asleep. So
Right.
it's important to not 100% rely on it or take it as a pathar ki lakeer ki bas ab ye ho gaya to ho gaya. It's not set in stone. There's a lot of subjectivity to it. So take it with a grain of salt is what I'd say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is where, maintaining your dream journals come into play, because, like you said, that sometimes you are able to see a pattern in the dreams. So
Mm-hmm.
if I come to you with one single dream or a fragment of a single dream, it becomes very difficult to relate it to the waking life. If
Mm-hmm.
I have one entire dream, the process is slightly simpler or easier. But if I have a collection of 7 dreams or 8 dreams, then it
Mm-hmm.
would be easier for the therapist or the psychologist to
True.
observe the pattern and try to understand that, okay, what is happening.
True. This is very important actually. I let my clients know when they come up with like one Sri Lanka is sinking. I sometimes it works, but most of the times my observation is that either it's one intense dream, like on a scale of 1 to 10, it classifies as an 11, that sort of a dream, or one pattern of dream coming again and again. That is when dream analysis actually helps quite a lot in
Yes.
those cases. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I remember somebody telling me, somebody from my family, that there is one exact place that he, very often sees. So not on a
Mhm.
very regular basis, not weekly, not monthly, but very randomly. But then he saw that particular place, and then he wanted to know that, okay, what does this mean? So I
Mhm.
just asked him, okay, how do you feel about that place? And he said that, okay, I raised there as a kid, and there are so many memories attached to it. So, what I told him was that your mind has accepted that place as a symbol of comfort, because he recalled his childhood is very comfortable and very nice.
Mhm.
Some of
Right.
us might not do that as well. So, again, this is where the process of being with the client and using dream analysis as a part of therapy comes into play. Because if I'm some random person, I would assume that your childhood has been very beautiful, and then I would say that, that place is a symbol of comfort. But if you know
Mhm.
the client, you would know that, okay, how was his childhood? So our mind
Mhm.
also accepts a few symbols and it uses them in multiple dreams.
True. It's important that you bring this up because when we talk about patterns, we don't just mean dreams that you see consecutively on days, like 5 days in a week. It's also a pattern of dreams that come at certain points in time, the similar, right? I remember whenever I'm feeling anxious about my work, about my capacity or capability as a professional, I have this very pattern sort of a dream wherein I'm in school and I have an exam. And suddenly I get to know about the exam. I have no idea I have an exam maybe tomorrow or in 2 days. And I'm like, shit, I don't even know what the syllabus is. I don't know where my books are. Oh, which subject is this? What am I going to do? And all my friends around me have already prepared. So that anxiety that comes with it, कि 2 दिन में exam है, syllabus नहीं पता क्या, and I am that kid who likes to revise quite a lot before exams. So it's a very anxiety-provoking situation for me. And this used to happen quite a lot ever since I started working as a profession, like 4 years or so. And only after what 2 to 3 years did I realize that, oh, so whenever I'm feeling conscious about me, whenever that imposter syndrome is kicking in, this dream comes up for me. So that is a theme, that is a pattern that comes up.
Right, absolutely. So, we have to see the dreams as metaphors. So, you questioning yourself in the exam, in front of a client and, helping people out. And in India, there's so much call out about being ethical, not so ethical, the grade. Yeah. So, you probably see it as an exam where everyone around you, your colleagues, everyone is very prepared and very qualified, very much trained, but then you see yourself failing the exam. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You got it. And I think जो live हमें dream analysis last के लिए रखना था वो अभी ही शुरू हो गया. And I'm all in for it, no worries. Because what you're making is absolutely correct. I do feel like the stress, the anxiety, the helplessness that I have to do this, but I don't think I have the resources to do it. Internal, external, all of those feelings come in. And you know what is most interesting, Aastha, that over the last year, there's been an addition in that dream. One, the former part is the same. There's a latter that is added, wherein I started to question the teacher that why didn't you tell me? Like, I didn't know about this. I am not going to study, or asking for help. I'm going to my friends. Can you tell me what's happening? Earlier, that was not there. And I can actually also see in my life that I'm more open to accepting that I'm not perfect. I am okay with seeking help, or sometimes even accepting कि ये चीज मुझे नहीं आती, just saying I don't know.
Right.
So I mean, my mind is blown. How amazing can our brains and minds be? Right. That eventually it's also changing the movie, that is the narrative which is going on in my head.
Absolutely. And if I don't want to get into the personal space, but let's just take it as an example that somebody else is telling about the dream that you have just discussed. So it could also be related to the fact, that asking the questions from ourselves that, okay, do we also see other people, as more privileged, who had access to better universities? Like, this is something that I personally deal with, to be very honest. I believe that, okay, I wish I had gone to this university. Oh my God, that person got this chance. And, I wish I had this opportunity. So kind of questioning the teacher that, why didn't you tell me? It's like, questioning life also, that, okay, why didn't I get to know? And I am so unprepared for it. And going to other people and asking for help is an indication of assuming that that person knows. He's better equipped with knowledge than I am. So, if we try to see this addition, probably, if you look around, you must have probably, I'm just making, a guess, that you probably communicated with somebody who went to some very famous XYZ university, and we see that as, oh wow, I wish I was there too. The faculty is amazing. So we all have those things within us.
Yeah, it's beautiful how our own personal aspects are coming into this conversation. And this is what we mean by the unique experiences of each client as well. Like for Aastha, like you just shared, maybe for you it's the privilege or that envy, sort of, for the lack of better words, that might come in, that I didn't get this, how come they have that, right? And whereas while I was talking about it, I was speaking more in terms of seeking support. So the same thing, the absolutely same thing, such different meanings, right? So at the end of the day, it's about what makes sense to you, or not just cognitively, but what sits well with you in the body.
Correct. And that is where, whenever we do analysis, we always try to ask the client and not put ideas. So if,
Yes.
we were talking to a client, and if I say this envy stuff or whatever, then he would think, okay, do I also think like that? But if I question him that, okay, what makes you feel like that, or how does this idea make you feel, so he would probably go in third direction. So it's very
Yeah.
important that we are not putting our own biases and our own
True.
interpretations of dreams. We are always guiding the person to do it. That's really important.
Very true. Very true. And this is why we are sending that out, that please do not sit with some random friend and be like, "Are ye matlab hoga, are wo hoga." I mean, if the intensity is from 3 to 5 or 6, sure, go ahead. But really intense or personal dreams, please do not go into it. It can bring up a lot for a person. Yeah.
And then you might just accept it as truth, and you might start changing your behaviors towards some random people in your life, because your mind used their face, and then you might start having negative feelings toward that person. So that would not be beneficial.
That's right, Aastha. The element of suggestibility is quite high when it comes to these themes. Like, I remember in my family, there was some conversation about Indian context mein, कि काला जादू कर दिया, black magic कर दिया and all. And this person was having constant dreams about something like that, and they were talking to another family member. So the second person says कि मुझे लगता है मुझे इससे अच्छी vibes नहीं आती, इसने तुम्हारे ऊपर कुछ काला जादू कर दिया. And then they got into an entire tangent that हाँ ऐसा ही होगा, ये ही होगा वो. Literally after that, they started sort of cutting off or behaving differently with that person whom they were talking about कि इसने करा होगा. So the element of suggestibility is quite high, and we cannot just go around playing with these tools and techniques. It can really, really come and hamper relationships. It
Absolutely.
can.
And this is very true when it comes to dreams. Because, I'll give another example. I have a client who's been in therapy for more than a year now. And like you were telling that, it takes courage to talk about some embarrassing and weird dreams. So he then told me that he saw himself involved inappropriately with the sister of his. And
that must be tough.
He disturbed this kid a lot. It would disturb anybody, right? And then, he had this thing in his mind and over his chest for 6 to 7 months, and then he gathered the courage and in a very encrypted manner, he told me, because he was really even embarrassed to talk about it. Then, it took some time for me to explain to him that he sees his sister as someone he feels comfortable with. The mind and the body recognizes that as a safe person to be with, right? So you being involved sexually with that person does not mean that you want to indulge into those things with her, but the mind, for the lack of a better face, wanted to represent those feelings of comfort and safety and used her face.
Right.
And because biologically, physiologically, a lot of researchers have also told us that this part, the frontal lobe wala part, which is responsible for the logical reasoning, is shut down when we are dreaming.
Right.
So there was no way you consciously could stop it.
Yeah. The judgment that comes with sex is this. Physical intimacy is this. It can happen with these people. That all comes from the logical, the conditioning part, right? But
and he got so disturbed that he stopped talking to the sister. He got so scared. So, we were talking about taking the dreams on the face value and then our relationships changing with the people. So he said that it's been so many months. I wish I had discussed this earlier, because I have not spoken to my sister for 6 months because of it. It's critical to emphasize this, Aastha. Just talk a little more about how the frontal lobe is shut down, which involves the logic, the judgments, and how these things might not actually be how they appear to be, because I'm sure it can break a lot of taboos in our own mind. I for sure can admit that I've had quote unquote inappropriate dreams with
people that I'm not supposed to be involved in certain ways, right?
Absolutely.
But I know for sure that I don't think that way. It's not that I unconsciously want to be physically intimate with that family member. No.
No.
But
Right.
people do take it personally, that there's so much shame, guilt that comes in, that how can I, that disgust. And I've seen my clients talk about it. So
Right.
please clear that out for everyone.
Yes, so very important point brought up by you. So, it works on so many layers. First of all, just thinking or, having that desire for sexual intimacy is so much stigmatized in our country that we even feel ashamed for having those feelings. So, the shame and the guilt comes from there as well. Then, obviously, if you see yourself involved in those kinds of acts with a family member or with a very dear friend of yours, we again feel very ashamed. We kind of indulge into self blaming. How
Mm-hmm.
could I have had that dream? But again, it was so vivid and so disturbing that you end up remembering some part of it. So at that point, we need to question ourselves about the kind of things that are happening in our waking life. How do we feel about that person? Do we feel safe with him or her, or do we feel comfortable with that person? Are there other people with whom we can replicate those feelings?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes the chances are that no, this is the only person with whom I feel that level of comfort. So because the mind did not have access to any other resource, it had to use that face so
Mm-hmm.
that you feel comfortable. Also, our mind does not have the power to make new faces.
Right.
So it has to use the faces which are available in the repository.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right, so it is, so if I'm seeing my mother in the dream does not mean that my mind means mother.
Right.
It might mean something else. If I'm afraid of my mother, it might mean something else. If I have a great bond with her, it could mean something else. So it's very
No.
specific to people. It's very important to understand that who you are seeing in the dream, there are very great chances that the face is not representing that person. So we should
Yeah.
not let our relationships be affected by it. Always sit and try to see the situation from a third person's point of view, very
Yeah.
objective. If
Yeah.
it is so disturbing for you that your relationships have started to, get hampered, then the best thing I would say is to go to a therapist and discuss your life and your
Absolutely.
dreams with them. But please do not book a session with a dream analyst who's claiming to analyze your dreams in one session or in half an hour.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not. Thank you for saying that. Dream analysis is not a degree. It's
Yes.
a technique that therapists use with a lot of other approaches. So please do not, like Asta said, go to anyone who's claiming to be a dream analyst. That is not a standalone qualification in itself. Go to a
Ye-
therapist, talk to them. I'm sure you'll be able to process it with them. Yeah. All right. So let me summarize what we've spoken about so far. And we've touched so many tangents, and I'm loving this conversation so far. So we started off talking about why we dream, and there were different perspectives to it, in the sense that, like Sigmund Freud, the first person we heard dream analysis from, who postulated that there are symbolic universal symbols, that okay, this means that, and eventually people, I don't think there's anyone in my circle at least who follows that sort of concept as of now. It has become more subjective, as in the symbolic meaning of the things, or the themes that you see in your dreams, right? So that school of thought says that there's something in the unconscious. And when we talk about unconscious, some things that are difficult for you to accept or confront or face in your waking life. Dreams are one of the ways in which we might process those themes or anxieties, concerns, or even that might be a way of our mind bringing attention to that concern in life, right? So anything that's in the unconscious. I know for sure that in my life, a lot of times when I've had conflicts with people that I cannot resolve or I don't want to explicitly resolve, I have had dreams where I'm resolving it with them, maybe beating the shit out of them sometimes. And next day, I honestly wake up feeling so much more energized. Like, ho gaya, I'm done and dusted with it. That chapter of my life is closed. So dreams can be so powerful in that way. They can help us process on an unconscious level. They can help us bring attention to the themes that are happening. So many things can happen along with the more biological things that they might be strengthening the flight fight response in us, or they might be consolidating what has happened in your day so far, right? So that is why we, in a nutshell, dream. There is no one conclusive answer to this, like there is nothing in mental health a lot of times, right?
True.
Yeah, and we went on to actually discuss a lot of areas, how we go on doing dream analysis, how subjective it is, how we ask questions that are open-ended. We never put a label that this is what it is. We ask the unique experiences of a person who's bringing in that dreams, understanding the patterned dreams or the intense dreams that come into picture, along with recognizing that dreams cannot be taken at their face value. Not at all.
Right.
Right? So just understand that when you're dreaming, first thing is name it, that it's a dream, it's a symbolic representation of something that might be going on.
Right.
And then start to think about it. If you want to talk to a professional, do not go to a 2 hours ka course kara a certification dream analyst. Talk to a therapist about it. Yeah. All right. So it also makes me think, when we're talking about the recall part of it that we touched on, is it possible that we make up dreams and then, like, maybe a client who comes, there's no way of knowing this, but I've always thought that you can never know what I dreamt of, right? So I can also
Right.
make things up to fill the gaps in my dreams. अगर इतना part recall हो रहा है, इतना part हो रहा है, तो बीच में कुछ भी चिपका दिया, sort of a thing. What do you think about that?
Of course. So I think this is a very common phenomena which happens to all the human beings. So, a few days ago, I was reading about eyewitness memory. And this is a
Yeah.
phenomena which happens even there. So, we read about confabulation when we
Mhm.
talk about alcoholism, when we talk about eyewitness memory. So it's a very common phenomena because our mind feels uncomfortable when it claims to have memory gaps. So it tends to, again, unconsciously fill in those gaps. But again, even if somebody is coming with a completely fake dream just to test you or just to have some fun or anything like that, even that can be understood as projection. So even if I am making up a story, no matter how much I try to not project, I will always end up projecting, right?
Yeah.
So even if somebody has memory gaps and he's filling it with some information. So like I said, if I like a dog in real life, my waking instinct would also be to pet him. And in the dream also, I would do that, right? So if I'm telling you by making this up that I saw a dog and, I went and I petted him, that is what I would have done in the dream, most likely as well, right? So even if somebody is making dreams up, even if there are memory gaps, then obviously, because again, we are not diagnosing somebody, we are not labeling somebody, we are only trying to understand what the mind is trying to bring our attention to. Even if there are few memory gaps and the person is filling it, that's okay. We do not have to worry about it.
Yeah, I love it when you say that. Even if they're filling in the gaps, how they're filling will tell us a lot about them anyway. So the objective is already being achieved there, right? In fact, a lot of people also come in and say, as a therapist, they ask me that, what if I come to you and lie about my life? I'm like, first of all, why would you want to do that? You're paying, you're coming
And
in.
pay me.
Yeah. If you want to come and lie to me, of course, all right, your wish. And then the themes that you're lying about. A lot of times people think that therapists ko aise kuch bhi bol denge chalega, but they don't understand that, okay, we're also smart people. we can also understand
They're
what's
very smart
beneath.
people.
We're very smart people. So many times there are people think that okay मैंने तो ऐसे ही बोल दिया या फिर चीजें ये हो गई वो हो गई, but there are themes underneath it. We can always as therapists pick up on things that why this, how come that, what is happening there, right? So I like what you say about even if it's a fabrication or a confabulation that is happening, what is the content of it? Even exploring that might give us good material to explore with the client, right? And at the end of the day, I say, whatever floats your boat. See, we want to feel better, right? So अगर वो confabulate करके ही better feel हो रहा है तो कर लो, ठीक है.
Right, absolutely. And this is the purpose when we ask our clients to make up stories. What are we asking them to? Simple projection, filling in the memory gaps as to what would I do in a situation like this. So applies the same in context of dreams also.
Absolutely. It's like if I'm having a dream where I'm resolving something and next I wake up feeling better, okay, mission accomplished. I don't know. I don't have to overthink it. I don't have to dwell deeper into each element of it. I always tell my clients to gradually make a connection with your body because it will tell you a lot that what is working and not working for you.
Correct.
Right? I don't want to say get in touch with your body because sometimes your body doesn't know what it wants if it's a very new concept to you. So developing that relationship, getting attuned to your own self, it will tell you what is working for you. If dream analysis is working for you, if it's actually being received by your mind and body or not, right?
Absolutely. So, another disclaimer over here, like you very nicely said, that you do not have to overthink about it. So, do not just try and sit and analyze each of your dreams because you're listening to this podcast. That, okay, today I learned about dream analysis. So from now on, I'm going to analyze each of my dreams. That is only going to make things messy for you.
It will.
Yes, definitely. So if you feel that, okay, this is one certain dream which ended up disturbing me a lot, or I see a pattern repeating and it's disturbing me, then try to analyze it. Do not try to analyze, every dream that you have. If it's normal, you'll eventually forget about it. And why bother?
Absolutely. There's an activity that I do with my clients to emphasize the importance of this. It's derived from that acceptance commitment therapy about if you're holding a piece of paper, I'm holding phone because I don't see a paper. If you're holding something away from you, right? The more you hold it away from you, your hand will start aching. You will be like, the more you push it away, zyada dhyan jayega because it's hurting, right? And even if you hold it right in front of your eye, that piece of paper, you won't be able to see other things that are going on in your life.
Right.
So those are two extremes. Either we try to completely push it away कि ऐसा तो कुछ हुआ ही नहीं है, हमें उसको avoid करना है, like मत सोचो. That sort of a thing.
बिल्कुल ही मत सोचो, right?
बिल्कुल ही मत सोचो. या फिर हम एकदम अच्छा आज तो मैं बैठ के यही सोचने वाली हूँ. Yeah, both of those things are not helpful if done regularly, right? So a better thing is that you keep that on your lap, acknowledge कि ऐसा हुआ, and see where you want to take it, right? And for that, actually, Aastha, can you tell our listeners about when to actually seek a therapist's opinion about your dreams, and when can you actually analyze your dreams as a layperson at your own home at the comfort of your own couch?
Right. So very important point. So like I said, that if you have any dream and you remember about it right after waking up, and it's like normal, you are curious that, okay, why did this happen? Why did I see that dog or cat or whatever? But you forget about it after half an hour and it is not crossing your mind throughout the day. Then clearly it is not something on which we need to invest our energy, because that happened and your brain or your mind resolved it as like a normal issue, a normal happening, and it's not bothering you. So you do not have to make a note of it or something like that. But if there's a dream and it stays with you for several hours and you end up thinking that, okay, why did I see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, was it me who saw it, or it raises some fundamental questions with you? So, like we discussed, that try to identify some major symbols. Question yourself, okay, how do I feel about it? Is there anything in my waking life which can be very similar in feeling to
Right.
this? So you might be able to understand some part of it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
again, if that sits well with you, perfect, your purpose has been solved. But like, I discussed a few of my clients' dreams where it actually affected them for a long time.
Yeah.
And it started hampering their relationships with people, or they started having anxiety because of that dream. I remember a client of mine telling me that he had so many weird dreams that he was scared of going to sleep,
Oh
and that
my.
affected
Okay.
his sleep cycle in such a way that he didn't want to go to sleep. And he said that I want to be so exhausted that if I fall asleep, I just wake up in the morning and I do not remember anything.
Oh,
And
that's
that
really difficult.
disrupted his waking life, that disrupted his entire routine. So in those cases, definitely you should try to make a note of the dreams because of which you felt so disturbed, and definitely go to a mental health professional and not try to help yourself in such intense cases. Definitely not.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. Three things that I tell my clients: time, intensity, frequency.
Yes.
Give it some time. If it gets better, great. Your mission accomplished. If it doesn't, come. Intensity. If it's something that is, again, on a scale of 1 to 10, somewhere between 3 to 5, and you feel it's manageable, all right. If it crosses 7 or 8 and it's disturbing you, come in. Then frequency. If it's happening too often, then you can
Right.
always bring it in. Sometimes I mean, I've had supernatural dreams sometimes, and I know they mean nothing, but they happen sometimes, right? But if it's constantly happening, right? So how much is it disturbing you at the end of the day, right?
Right.
So that is when you need to approach a professional, a therapist, not any random person about that. Yeah. Yeah, so we're approaching the end of our conversation here, Aastha, and you've already mentioned some very great techniques of the DIY of your dream analysis. If you're at home, like you said, you mentioned dream journal at one point, because ऐसा नहीं होता कि आपको सारी ड्रीम्स याद रहे. मतलब मुझे वेकिंग आवर्स में जितनी चीजें होती हैं वो ध्यान नहीं रहती, तो सोते हुए पता नहीं क्या ही होगा. So it helps if you want to wake up in the morning, make a note of your dreams. Patterns you can understand a lot from them कि अच्छा ऐसे ऐसे हो रहा है, इन दिनों पे ऐसी ड्रीम्स आ रही हैं, right?
Right.
Other thing that you mentioned is look at the symbolic meaning of what is coming up. If you're, suppose you're hitting your brother, like hitting your sibling, do not look at it as your urge to hit them actually, right? Look at the symbolic meaning. What does your brother represent? What was your state of mind? What does that hitting in fact represent? What was the physical situation in which you were hitting that person? So understanding the symbolic meaning of that. Anything else that people can use at their own accord in terms of, okay, this is something that I can utilize to understand my dream.
I think more or less you've covered everything. Just when it comes to patterns, so we might also recognize patterns is, that I see a lot of falling down dreams. Also patterns in terms of themes as well. I see a lot of chased down dreams where I'm being chased down by something, right? So you can also observe patterns in those cases, and just make sure that you are writing your dreams if your therapist or if your psychologist has asked you to do that. Because sometimes we're like, no, I'll remember this dream, but then we do not remember a major part of it. So always just write your dream. I tell my clients that, okay, you wake up, you go to the washroom, sitting in your washroom, write it in your phone ka notepad. It is not
Yeah.
important that you're writing full blown sentences grammatically correct on a
No,
piece
no,
of
no.
paper. Write the pointers down, and this is an activity which I have also done with myself. I once wrote a couple of dreams early in the morning, like right after waking up, and when I opened that notepad after 2 days and I read it, I was like, oh my God, is this something that I have written? Matlab, the forgetting happened to that level.
Oh, okay.
I
Mm-hmm.
questioned that, okay, did I really see that, and did I really remember it, and have I really written this? So you forget it like it never really happened. The real forgetting is that you don't even know you have forgotten it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the real forgetting. If
Mm.
I'm telling you, okay, I'm forgetting your name, it means it is still there in the back of my mind.
True.
Right, so real forgetting happens. So you can do this activity, or the listeners can do this activity themselves. Write a few dreams and read them after 2 days, and you'll be surprised that, okay, do I
Yeah.
remember only 2%? This will tell you how much we actually forget.
Right.
And then you cannot see a pattern if you do not have a major part of the dream, because
Yeah.
obviously dreams seem real to us, so it has to have a beginning, a middle, and most likely an end. Sometimes you wake up very abruptly, but sometimes we do. So
Mm-hmm.
it is going to flow in the story. So sometimes we tell that, okay, I was here and then suddenly I reached there. Probably you saw the rasta also, but then you don't remember about seeing.
Yeah, yeah. In everything, I'd say dreams can be supremely helpful in understanding yourself. There are some people who have a thirst or a drive to just know themselves. They might not have something going on that they want to address in therapy, but they are introspective people, curious people. So dreams can definitely tell you a lot about it. At the
Yes.
same time, do not obsess over it. Do not sit with each and every day dream of each night and be like, iska kya matlab hai? What is happening, right? So do not push that paper too away and do not hold it too close to your eyes. Yeah.
Right.
Right. I have so many more questions, but I feel that for today, we're at a good place, whatever we have discussed so far. And in the end, what I want to ask you is there something about dreams or dream analysis that I should be asking you, but I haven't asked you so far?
So the most common question, I am assuming you already have an answer, and that is why you didn't ask me. But for the listeners' sake, we sometimes say that I do not dream.
Ah,
I never dream. So that's not true. We all dream. Biologically, it is not possible to not dream. We have multiple dreams throughout the night. It's just that we either do not remember them, or we remember one, or if we are waking up in the middle, so one or two, but we all dream. So do not think that something is wrong with you if you are not dreaming, because you are clearly dreaming if you are sleeping, but it's probably because you are not able to remember them. But that's also okay. Less things to worry about, less things to be stressed about. So it's okay if you're not remembering.
all right. That is actually helpful to let everyone know you are absolutely dreaming and it's okay if you're not recalling it. Yeah. Huh. And of course, there are things like lucid dreaming, and consciously we're not touching about it because we can have an entire episode about lucid dreaming altogether. Right? Today's conversation was focused more around dreams and analyzing them, understanding them. And so far, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And I'm 110% sure that the people who listen to it will enjoy it equally.
I think it was lovely. I really, really enjoyed. And this is actually the first podcast that I have done. So I was really
Oh,
forward to it. So it was lovely. And dreams, is something that I really enjoy talking about. And I'm very hopeful that all the listeners will benefit from this, and they will be able to understand the meanings of their dreams better. But like we've repeated so many times, do not try to over help yourself. So, they can reach out to you, or they can reach out to me, or they can reach out to any psychologist, therapist, anyone whom they find feasible. And then, they can resolve any issues that they are able to identify.
yes. On that note, how can people reach out to you?
So I have my website. It's called www.thegreycouch.com. and I can be reached out from there, or like you mentioned, through my LinkedIn. So it's Aastha Jain, and also my Instagram. So it's called the_breakout.
Perfect. I'll mention all of these platforms in the show notes so that people can just click on it and approach you. What kind of services are you currently open for? What can people reach out to you for?
So I have worked with cancer patients quite a lot. So, I deal with cancer patients, their families. Also, I work with, issues like depression, anxiety, relationship issues, sleep issues, dreams, stuff like that. So that is for the clients. And because I'm also a PhD scholar and I love research, so I also, help people make more sense of their research and guide them accordingly. So that is more
Okay.
applicable to psychology students.
Yeah.
But yeah, both kind of services I do provide.
Perfect. Is it okay for the listeners to reach out to you in case they want more resources about dream analysis or just understanding the concept more?
Yes, sure.
Perfect. Great, Asta. It was lovely talking to you. I have so many thoughts going on in my mind. And it takes effort from my side to be like, okay, it's time. Just stop as of now. What a pause. I'm sure this conversation can go on for hours and hours. And yet, what we have spoken about so far, I have had fun doing it. That's the most important thing, that we have fun talking about it.
Same here.
Thank you for being here today. Thank you for talking about dreams. Thank you for taking us through dreamland, actually.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to more conversations.
Definitely. All right. If everyone wants, please do share this episode with anyone who would like and benefit from these conversations. And goodbye till the next one.